The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a massive structure of crystalline metal that reflected the light of distant stars. Inside, representatives from 47 different alien species sat in circular tiers, all facing the center stage. The air processors hummed softly, mixing atmospheric requirements for beings who breathed everything from methane to pure oxygen. Ambassador Zekthor of the Crithian Dominion stood at the center platform. His forearms gestured dramatically as holographic images flickered to life above him. He was tall, nearly 3 meters, with scales that shimmered between blue and purple. His species had been part of the Galactic Council for over 6,000 years. They were respected. They were feared. Honored council members. Zekthor's voice boomed through the translation devices embedded in every seat. Today I bring grave news. A threat rises in Sector 447, on a world these beings call Earth. The hologram shifted, showing a blue and green planet swirled with white clouds. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. Many council members had seen thousands of worlds, but this one seemed particularly vibrant with life. They call themselves humans, Zekthor continued. Our surveillance has monitored them for 32 of their years. What we have discovered is disturbing. Another gesture, and the hologram changed. Now it showed cities, massive structures of metal and glass reaching toward the sky. Vehicles moved in organized patterns. Light sparkled across the dark side of the planet like scattered jewels. They are aggressive, Zekthor said. They fight among themselves constantly. Even now they maintain weapons capable of rendering their own world uninhabitable. Nuclear devices, chemical weapons, biological agents. They have almost destroyed themselves 3 times in the last century alone. Murmurs rippled through the council chamber. A representative from the peaceful Thelnari species, beings who resembled floating jellyfish, pulsed with concerned colors. But surely they are contained to their own world. Why should we intervene? Zekthor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Because they are expanding, rapidly. The hologram showed spacecraft. They were crude compared to the sleek vessels of the Galactic Council, bulky and inefficient. But they existed. Humans had already placed stations around their world, had sent explorers to their moon, and had machines exploring the other planets in their system. In just 50 years, they went from primitive aircraft to orbital capability, Zekthor explained. They developed technology at an alarming rate, and look at this. New images appeared, military installations, soldiers training, weapons being tested, massive ships being constructed in orbital facilities. They are preparing for war. Zekthor's voice dropped lower. Not with each other, not anymore. They have united their world under a single banner, the United Earth Defense Council, and our intelligence shows they have detected our surveillance. That caused a stir. Several council members leaned forward. The Vexnar representative, an insectoid creature with multiple eyes, clicked its mandibles nervously. They have no faster-than-light technology. How could they detect our probes? They are clever, Zekthor admitted. Dangerously so. They noticed patterns in their cosmic background radiation, tiny anomalies. They concluded correctly that someone was watching them, and instead of attempting contact, they began militarizing in secret. More images flashed above the assembly. Research facilities, development programs, artificial intelligence systems that made some of the older species uncomfortable. They have created thinking machines, Zekthor continued. They experiment with genetic modifications. They push the boundaries of their technology with reckless abandon. If we wait another 50 years, they will have faster-than-light travel. If we wait 100, they will be a threat to established systems. If we wait 200, he let the silence speak for him. The council speaker, an ancient being whose species was so old no one remembered their world of origin, raised one withered hand. What do you propose, Ambassador Zekthor? Preemptive pacification, Zekthor said bluntly. We have done this before with other aggressive species. Surgical strikes against military installations, occupation, reduction of population to manageable levels. We integrate them slowly into galactic society under supervision. In a few generations, they become peaceful, productive members of the Council. You speak of genocide, the Thelnari representative pulsed in angry red hues. I speak of prevention, Zekthor countered. Better to clip the claws of a predator while it is young than face it when fully grown. These humans are dangerous. Every simulation we run shows the same result. If left unchecked, they will disrupt the galactic order. They will fight. They will refuse to submit to Council authority. They are too aggressive, too independent, too warlike. The debate lasted for 3 hours. Voices rose and fell. Some species argued for peaceful contact, for diplomacy, for offering the humans a chance to join the galactic community willingly. But others, especially those who had benefited from the Council's previous pacification campaigns, voted with the Crithians. In the end, 47 species voted yes. Only 3 voted no. It was decided. Earth would be pacified. Supreme Commander Vraltek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Inevitable Conquest, and watched as the Armada assembled. 500 warships gathered in formation, representing 23 different species. It was the largest fleet assembled in 3 centuries. Vraltek was Crithian, like Ambassador Zekthor, but where the ambassador was a politician, Vraltek was a warrior. He had overseen 12 successful conquest campaigns. He had never lost a battle. The scales on his chest bore the scars of 100 fights, marks of honor in his culture. Status report, he commanded. His tactical officer, a 4-eyed Vexnar named Clickstar, consulted his displays. All ships have reported ready status, Commander. We have 312 heavy cruisers, 142 destroyers, and 46 dreadnought-class vessels. Each is equipped with plasma cannons, fusion missiles, and shield breakers. Vraltek nodded slowly. It was overwhelming force, probably unnecessary, but he had not survived 12 campaigns by taking chances. What do we know about Earth's defenses? He asked. Clickstar pulled up a holographic display. The blue planet appeared, surrounded by small dots representing known military assets. Our intelligence indicates approximately 80 combat-capable spacecraft. They are primarily armed with kinetic weapons, railguns, and missiles with conventional warheads, some early plasma weapons, but nothing that can penetrate modern shielding. Orbital installations? 17 platforms, Commander. They are positioned around key population centers and industrial facilities, armed similarly to their ships. We have also detected a network of satellites, but they appear to be primarily communication and surveillance systems. Vraltek studied the display. The humans had scattered their forces in a defensive pattern, protecting their cities and industrial centers. It was a predictable strategy, emotional. They wanted to protect their civilians. It would be their downfall. And they have no knowledge of our approach? Vraltek asked. Negative, Commander. They have no faster-than-light communication. Our fleet is still 4 light-years away. Even if they saw us now, they would be seeing where we were 4 years ago. By the time light from our current position reaches them, we will already be in their system. Perfect. Vraltek had fought enemies who could see him coming. Those battles were harder. But an enemy with no warning, no time to prepare? This would be quick. Projected travel time? He asked. 6 weeks at current speed, Commander. We will emerge at the edge of their system here. Clickstar highlighted a point beyond the orbit of the 9th planet. From there, it is a 3-day journey to Earth itself. Vraltek began formulating his battle plan. Standard doctrine for pacification. Achieve orbit, destroy any defending forces, and then begin systematic bombardment of military installations. Once the humans' ability to fight was eliminated, ground forces would secure major population centers. Occupation would follow. The humans would likely attempt to negotiate once they realized the situation was hopeless. Some always did. Vraltek would accept their surrender, of course. The Council preferred integration to extinction when possible, but terms would be harsh. Earth would be disarmed completely. Their population would be reduced to sustainable levels. Their leadership would be replaced with council-approved overseers. In a few generations, humans would be just another member species. Peaceful, obedient, controlled. Communications send to all ships, Vraltek ordered. We depart in 1 hour. Battle Plan Theta 7. Inform all commanders that I expect minimal casualties and maximum efficiency. This is a pacification, not a war. We are not here to destroy the humans, but to civilize them. Yes, Commander, the communications officer responded. Vraltek turned back to the viewport, watching the assembled might of 23 different species. 500 warships, each more advanced than anything the humans possessed. It was like bringing a fusion cannon to a knife fight. The inevitable conquest thrummed beneath his feet as its engines came to full power. One by one, the other ships in the armada did the same. Space itself seemed to bend around them as faster-than-light drives engaged. They would arrive at Earth in 6 weeks. The humans would never know what hit them. Admiral Sarah Chen sat in the deep command center beneath Colorado, staring at the message on her screen. Around her, the United Earth Defense Council chamber buzzed with quiet activity. Staff members moved between stations, voices kept low despite the tension in the air. The message had come from Deep Space Probe 47, one of hundreds of automated sensors humanity had scattered throughout the outer solar system over the past 15 years. It was garbled, partially corrupted by some form of interference. But the core data was clear enough. Massive energy signatures, multiple sources, moving toward the solar system at faster-than-light speeds. Someone was coming. Chen was 53 years old, a career military officer who had risen through the ranks during the Unification Wars, when Earth's nations had finally realized they needed to work together or die separately. She had seen combat. She knew what it meant when an enemy approached with overwhelming force. "How long?" she asked quietly. Dr. James Okonkwo stood beside her, his dark eyes reflecting the glow of the display screens. He was the head of DARPA's Xeno-Warfare Division, a department that officially didn't exist. Based on the energy readings and estimated speeds, 5 weeks, maybe 6. "Can we be sure they're hostile?" Okonkwo's laugh was bitter. "They're bringing an armada, Admiral. Hundreds of ships. If they wanted to talk, they'd send a diplomatic vessel, not an invasion force." Chen nodded slowly. She had known this day might come. They all had ever since 15 years ago when Earth's deep space monitoring systems had detected anomalous readings that suggested someone, somewhere, was watching them. That discovery had changed everything. In secret, away from public knowledge, Earth's governments had united under a single directive: prepare for contact. But not peaceful contact. Prepare for war. Because any species that watched another species in secret, that studied them without making contact, was not interested in friendship. They were interested in intelligence, in tactical assessment, in determining whether humanity was a threat or an opportunity. "Activate mousetrap," Chen said quietly. The words hung in the air. Around the command center, officers stopped what they were doing. Everyone knew what that meant. Okonkwo nodded and moved to a secure terminal. He placed his hand on the biometric scanner and spoke clearly. "Authorization Okonkwo Delta 7. Activate Project Mousetrap. Full implementation." The screen flashed, red, then green. All across Earth, hidden systems that had been dormant for years suddenly came to life. Military commanders received encrypted orders. Civilian governments began implementing carefully rehearsed emergency protocols. And in secret bases on the Moon, Mars, and hidden throughout the asteroid belt, weapon systems that officially didn't exist began powering up. Chen stood addressing the officers in the command center. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we've been preparing for. Someone out there has decided that humanity needs to be dealt with. They're bringing an armada to do it. But they're going to learn something today." She paused, meeting the eyes of her officers one by one. "They're going to learn that humans don't roll over when threatened. They're going to learn that we've been ready for this. And most importantly, they're going to learn that Earth is not helpless." She turned back to the displays, watching as status reports flooded in from around the solar system. Hidden bases reporting ready, stealth ships disengaging their camouflage for systems checks before going dark again. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as asteroids coming online. The aliens thought they were attacking a primitive, unprepared world. They were walking into a trap. "Let them come," Chen said, softly. "We'll give them a welcome they'll never forget." The emergency session of the United Earth Defense Council began within an hour of Admiral Chen's activation order. In the secured chamber deep beneath the mountains of Colorado, holographic representations of world leaders flickered into existence around the circular table. Presidents, prime ministers, chancellors, and generals all summoned on the highest priority alert. Premier Jiang Wei of the Asian Coalition spoke first, his aged face creased with concern. "Admiral Chen, you have activated Mousetrap. Please tell us why." Chen stood at the head of the table, data displays floating around her. Deep Space Probe 47 detected an approaching fleet. Estimated 500 vessels arriving in 5 to 6 weeks. Given the size and composition of the force, we must assume hostile intent. The chamber erupted. Questions flew from every direction. President Okoro of the African Union raised his hand for silence. 500 ships? Admiral, we have 80 combat vessels. Even with our hidden assets, we're talking about a massive numerical disadvantage, which is exactly what they're counting on, Dr. Okonkwo interjected, stepping forward. Let me explain what's actually been happening for the last 15 years. He gestured, and a timeline appeared in the center of the table. In 2232, we detected the first surveillance probe. It was subtle, nearly invisible, but it was there. Someone was watching us. We've been tracking similar probes ever since. Whoever they are, they've been studying us for at least 3 decades. And you didn't think to inform us? Premier Zhang's voice was sharp. We informed those with clearance, Okonkwo replied calmly. Project Mousetrap was classified at the highest level for a reason. If our watchers suspected we knew about them, they might have acted sooner or changed their approach. We needed them to underestimate us. General Martinez of the America's Defense Force leaned forward. So what exactly is Mousetrap? Okonkwo smiled, grimly. Mousetrap is based on a simple principle. Our enemy has been watching us, studying our capabilities, assessing our threat level, so we gave them exactly what they expected to see. A divided, chaotic species with modest military capabilities, barely capable of defending our own orbital space. Another gesture, and new images appeared. They showed Earth's visible military assets. The 80 warships orbiting the planet. The 17 orbital defense platforms. The scattered bases on the Moon and Mars. This is what they see, Okonkwo continued. Primitive kinetic weapons, early plasma technology, defensive formations protecting population centers, a species that's barely achieved spaceflight, let alone posed a threat to anyone else. And the reality? President Okoro asked. Okonkov's smile widened. The reality is that for 15 years, every major government on Earth has been funneling resources into hidden military development. We've built weapons platforms inside hollowed-out asteroids. We've constructed shipyards on the far side of the Moon where their probes can't see. We've developed AI-controlled drone swarms, railgun networks with 100 times the power of what we've displayed, and experimental energy weapons that our visitors have no idea exist. The displays changed, showing the true extent of Earth's military capabilities. Hidden bases throughout the solar system. Stealth ships that had been operating in silence for years. Weapons platforms disguised as mining facilities or research stations. Admiral Chen took over. Our visible fleet of 80 ships? They're real, but they're also decoys. Our actual combat fleet numbers 230 vessels, all equipped with weapon systems our visitors have never encountered. We've been letting them watch us fight each other with restraint, using only conventional tactics. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we stop holding back. Chancellor Muller of the European Federation shook his head in disbelief. This is insane. You're telling me we've been running a 15-year deception operation against an alien species? Actually, Okonkwo said, we've been doing exactly what humans have always done best. We've been hunting, And the first rule of hunting is to make the prey think they're the predator. Chen pulled up a tactical display. Here's what's going to happen. When the alien fleet arrives, they'll see exactly what they expect. Our visible forces will scatter, appearing to panic. We'll broadcast evacuation, orders, show civilian chaos, make it look like we're a frightened, disorganized species with no real defense plan. But we'll be watching them, Okonkwo added, learning their formations, their tactics, their weapons capabilities, and we'll be positioning our hidden assets. When they commit to their attack, when they move close to Earth to begin their bombardment, we spring the trap, Chen finished. We hit them from every direction at once. Hidden platforms, stealth ships, drone swarms, weapons they've never seen before. We turn their invasion into an ambush. Premier Zhang studied the tactical display carefully. This is a massive risk, Admiral. If your plan fails, if they're more capable than you anticipate, Earth will be defenseless. With respect, Premier, Earth is already being attacked, Chen replied. They're bringing 500 ships to pacify us. That's not a word that suggests negotiation. Our choice is to fight smart or die predictably. I choose to fight smart. The council debated for another 2 hours, but in the end, the decision was unanimous. Mousetrap would proceed. Earth would spring its ambush. As the holographic representatives faded, Chen turned to Okonkwo. I hope we're right about this. We are, he assured her. We've spent 15 years studying every piece of data we could gather about galactic technology. We know their strengths, but more importantly, we know their weaknesses. Which are, they've been advanced for so long that they've forgotten how to innovate under pressure, Okonkwo explained. Their weapons, their tactics, they're all refined versions of the same basic principles. Energy weapons that can be shielded against. Plasma that dissipates over distance. Fusion missiles that can be intercepted. They fight in predictable patterns because those patterns have always worked. And we fight differently, Chen said. We fight like humans, Okonkwo confirmed. Asymmetric warfare. Deception. Using physics as a weapon instead of just energy. Our railguns fire solid projectiles at relativistic speeds. There's no shielding against kinetic energy. Our nuclear weapons don't rely on sophisticated technology, just raw destructive power. And our AI systems can coordinate attacks faster than any biological crew can react. Chen nodded slowly. Activate the broadcast protocols. Let's start feeding them exactly what they want to see. Throughout Earth's orbital space, carefully choreographed chaos began to unfold. The UEDF destroyer Thunderstrike broke formation suddenly, its engines firing erratically as it moved away from Earth. To alien sensors watching from light years away, it would look like panic, like a ship fleeing without orders. In reality, Captain Rodriguez was positioning his vessel exactly where Admiral Chen's battle plan required. He would be part of the first wave, the scattered defenders, who would draw the alien fleet into optimal attack range. On the moon, Commander Petrov oversaw the staged evacuation of Tycho Base. Personnel rushed to shuttles. Equipment was hastily abandoned. Lights flickered and died in certain sections. The alien surveillance would see a colony in panic, abandoning their homes in fear. But deep beneath the surface, in levels the aliens had never detected, crews were bringing online the most powerful weapons humanity had ever built. The railgun network could accelerate projectiles to 10% of light speed. At that velocity, even a small slug of metal could devastate a capital ship. Radio transmissions flooded Earth's communication networks. News broadcasts showed panicking crowds, military spokespeople giving contradictory orders, government officials fleeing to bunkers. Social media exploded with fear and confusion. All of it was theater. In Beijing, Mumbai, New York, Lagos, and São Paulo, civilians went about their lives normally, unaware that the broadcasts showing their cities in chaos were completely fabricated. The real population had been briefed months ago. If an attack came, they would shelter in place. But there would be no panic, no evacuation, no breakdown of order. Supreme Commander Vraltek, watching these transmissions from 4 light-years away, saw exactly what he expected to see. The humans are in disarray, he reported to his fellow commanders. Their military is scattering, their civilians are panicking, and their government is fracturing. We will face minimal organized resistance. His tactical officer, Clickstar, analyzed the data. Confirmed, Commander. Their 80 warships are breaking formation. 17 are fleeing toward their outer planets. 23 are taking defensive positions around population centers. The rest appear to be attempting to organize some kind of defensive line, but there's no coordination. Vraltek felt satisfaction settle over him. This would be even easier than anticipated. Maintain current speed. We'll emerge at the edge of their system and advance in standard pacification formation. Prepare to broadcast surrender terms once we're in range. Aboard the inevitable conquest, crews went about their duties with confidence. They were the tip of the spear, the most powerful military force assembled in 3 centuries, and they were about to teach a primitive species what happened when you drew the attention of the Galactic Council. None of them suspected they were sailing directly into a carefully prepared trap. 5 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. Earth's hidden forces moved into position with careful precision. Every calculation was checked and rechecked. Every weapon system was tested and retested. Admiral Chen slept in 4-hour shifts, always ready to respond to any change in the situation. Dr. Okonkwo coordinated the technical aspects, ensuring that all the hidden systems remained undetected. The AI networks were particularly tricky. Humanity had developed artificial intelligence that could coordinate complex military operations, but the risk of detection was high. Every AI system had to be kept powered down until the last possible moment. "How's the Reaper protocol?" Chen asked during one of their daily briefings. Okonkwo's expression grew serious. "Ready, but I have to remind you, Admiral, we've never tested it at full power. The energy requirements are massive, and the weapon itself is unstable. If we fire it, there's a 20% chance it could overload and destroy whatever platform we mount it on. But if it works, it will cut through enemy ships like tissue paper. Directed energy weapon using principles we've adapted from fusion reactor technology. But Admiral, it's a last resort weapon. We use it only if we absolutely have to." "Understood," Chen agreed. "What about the drone swarms?" 15,000 units ready to deploy. Each one is autonomous, can coordinate with the others through quantum encrypted communications, and is equipped with shaped charges designed to breach ship hulls. They're small enough that enemy sensors will have trouble tracking them all, and fast enough that point defense systems will be overwhelmed. Chen allowed herself a small smile. In ancient times, humans used to hunt mammoths with spears. The mammoth was bigger, stronger, had better natural weapons. But humans hunted in packs, used strategy, used tools. The mammoth always lost. "Let's hope our visitors don't know that history," Okonkwo said. On the 5th week, Deep Space Probe 47 detected the alien fleet entering the edge of the solar system. They emerged from faster-than-light travel near Neptune's orbit, exactly as predicted. Admiral Chen stood in the command center, surrounded by her senior staff. Display screens showed real-time data from every sensor in the solar system. The alien armada was massive, overwhelming, exactly as terrifying as they'd been told it would be. "All stations, this is Admiral Chen," she broadcast on encrypted channels. "Enemy fleet has entered the system. All units maintain current positions. Do not, I repeat, do not break operational security. Let them come to us." She turned to her tactical officer. "Show me their formation." The main display shifted, showing the alien fleet spreading out into what was clearly a standard attack pattern. 3 main groups, approaching on different vectors. It was designed to overwhelm defenses by forcing Earth to split its forces. "They're doing exactly what we predicted," the tactical officer reported. "Primary force heading straight for Earth. Secondary force moving toward the Moon. Tertiary force taking position near Mars, probably to cut off any retreat." Chen nodded. "They're being cautious but confident. They expect us to defend our population centers, so they're positioning to strike all of them simultaneously." She watched as the alien fleet advanced deeper into the solar system, past Neptune, past Uranus, past Saturn, getting closer with every passing hour. Dr. Okonkwo stood beside, Her, his eyes fixed on the display. When do we activate? Not yet, Chen said quietly. Let them get close. Let them commit. The closer they are when we spring the trap, the more devastating it will be. The alien fleet crossed Jupiter's orbit. They were 3 days from Earth. Now, Chen opened a secure channel to all Earth forces, visible and hidden. All units, this is Admiral Chen. Enemy fleet will be in optimal range in 72 hours. At that time, we execute Mousetrap. Until then, maintain your positions and stay invisible. She closed the channel and allowed herself a moment of doubt. 500 enemy ships against everything humanity had built in secret. It should be enough. The math supported it. The simulations confirmed it. But simulations weren't reality, and the lives of every human in the solar system depended on being right. Admiral, Okonkwo said softly, they're hailing us. Chen straightened. Put it through. The main display shifted, showing Supreme Commander Vraltek. He was impressive, Chen had to admit. Nearly 3 meters tall, covered in scales that reflected the light from his ship's bridge, 4 arms folded across his chest. When he spoke, his voice was confident, almost bored. Humans of Earth, I am Supreme Commander, Vraltek of the Galactic Council Pacification Fleet. You have been deemed a potential threat to galactic stability. Surrender your world and accept Council oversight. Resist and you will be pacified by force. You have 1 rotation of your planet to respond. The transmission ended. Chen looked around at her officers. Some looked angry, some looked frightened. All of them looked determined. Draft a response, Chen ordered. Tell them we need time to consider, request additional information, ask for proof of authority. Standard diplomatic stalling tactics. And if they don't give us more time? Her communications officer asked. Admiral Chen smiled coldly. Then we give them something they'll remember forever. We show them that humanity didn't come from a peaceful world. We evolved as hunters, as warriors, as survivors, and we're about to remind the galaxy what that means. She turned back to the display, watching the alien fleet approach. They thought they were predators coming to cull a weaker species. They were about to learn who the real predators were. The alien armada crossed Mars's orbit in perfect formation. Supreme Commander Vraltek stood on the bridge of the inevitable conquest, watching the blue planet grow larger in the view screen. Earth hung in space like a jewel, unaware of the judgment, descending upon it, or so he thought. Status of human forces? Vraltek demanded. Clickstar consulted his displays, his 4 eyes moving independently across multiple readouts. The 80 human vessels are scattered and disorganized, Commander. 17 are still attempting to flee toward the outer system. 23 have formed defensive clusters around major population centers. The remaining 40 are trying to establish a defensive line between us and Earth, but their formation is chaotic. Vraltek nodded with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The humans were panicking, making emotional decisions, trying to protect their civilians instead of mounting an effective military defense. It was a common mistake among primitive species. Deploy the fleet in attack formation Delta 3, he ordered. Primary force will engage Earth's orbital defenses. Secondary force will neutralize the moon installations. Tertiary force will remain in position near Mars to intercept any retreating vessels. The armada split into 3 groups. 200 ships angled toward Earth itself, moving into bombardment positions. 100 ships turned toward the moon, where human colonies and military platforms clustered. The remaining 200 ships took up blocking positions near Mars. Admiral Chen watched this maneuver from her command center deep beneath Colorado. Around her, dozens of officers monitored displays showing every ship movement, every energy signature, every communication burst from the alien fleet. They're doing exactly what we predicted, her tactical officer reported. Splitting into 3 groups, focusing on our visible assets. Dr. Okonkov stood at his own station, fingers dancing across holographic controls. All hidden assets report ready status, Admiral. We can activate on your command. Chen felt her heart pounding. This was it. 15 years of preparation, all coming down to the next few minutes. If she had miscalculated, if the aliens were more capable than anticipated, humanity would be wiped out. But if she was right, she opened a secure channel that reached every hidden installation, every stealth ship, every weapons platform that officially didn't exist. All units, this is Admiral Chen. Execute mousetrap. I repeat, execute mousetrap. All units engage on my mark. She watched the alien fleet continue its advance. The primary force was now entering high orbit around Earth. Perfect attack position for orbital bombardment. They thought they had won. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Everything happened at once. Phobos, the tiny moon of Mars, suddenly split open like a hatching egg. What the aliens had assumed was a natural satellite revealed its true nature. The interior was hollow, converted over years into a massive weapons platform. Railgun batteries that had been hidden beneath a thin shell of rock swiveled into position and opened fire. Solid tungsten slugs, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to 10% of light speed. At that velocity, they crossed the distance to the alien tertiary force in seconds. The aliens' energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and fusion weapons, did nothing against pure kinetic energy. The first slug hit a Crithian heavy cruiser, dead center. The impact released more energy than a small nuclear weapon. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, vaporized instantly along with its crew of 300. Before the aliens could react, 15 more slugs tore through their formation. Ships died without time to even send distress signals. Supreme Commander Vraltek saw the tertiary force's status indicator suddenly blink to red, then black, gone. 16 ships destroyed in the first 3 seconds. What was that? He roared. Where did that attack come from? Mars's moon, Commander. Clickstar's voice was panicked. It's a weapons platform. The humans hollowed it out and... He never finished. All across the solar system, humanity's trap sprang shut. The asteroid belt came alive. What the aliens had assumed were natural rocks suddenly activated drives and weapon systems. 78 warships that had been hiding in plain sight, their surfaces camouflaged to look like asteroids, dropped their disguises and engaged engines. These were the real Earth warships. Larger than the defenders the aliens had been watching, armed with weapons humanity had kept secret. They had been waiting in the asteroid belt for weeks, undetected, patient. Now they struck. The tertiary force near Mars, already reeling from Phobos' attack, found itself surrounded. Human ships attacked from all directions, their railguns firing non-stop. The aliens tried to return fire, but their plasma cannons were designed for ship-to-ship combat at medium range. In the close-quarters chaos, they were almost useless. Meanwhile, around Earth, the moon revealed its own secrets. Commander Petrov had been waiting for this moment. The evacuation of Tycho Base had been a performance. Now, hidden doors opened. Across the lunar surface, missile silos rose from beneath layers of regolith. Defense turrets that had been dormant for years hummed to life. And from 3 hidden hangar bays carved into the far side of the moon, 15,000 autonomous combat drones launched simultaneously. They were small, each no bigger than a motorcycle, but they were fast and numerous. Guided by AI systems that could coordinate their movements with inhuman precision, they swarmed toward the alien secondary force like a cloud of mechanical hornets. The aliens' point defense systems opened fire, destroying dozens of drones. But for every drone destroyed, 10 more closed in. They were too many, too fast, moving in patterns that seemed random but were actually calculated to overwhelm targeting systems. The drones reached the alien ships and clamped on with magnetic grips. Shaped charges detonated against hulls, boring through armor. Some drones found engine ports and detonated inside propulsion systems. Others targeted weapons batteries, sensor arrays, communication antennas. Within minutes, the secondary force was blind, crippled, and in chaos. Vraltek watched his carefully planned invasion disintegrate into disaster. Half his forces were engaged in desperate defensive battles. His tertiary force was being torn apart near Mars. His secondary force was drowning in drones. And his primary force, the 200 ships he personally commanded, hadn't even engaged yet. All ships, defensive formation, he ordered. Activate full shields. Target those drones and— Commander, new contacts, Klixitar screamed. Earth's orbital space, multiple signatures emerging. On the displays, the 17 defense platforms that the aliens had mapped around Earth suddenly began moving. They weren't platforms. They were ships, stealth ships that had been pretending to be stationary installations, and they were heavily armed. Admiral Chen allowed herself a grim smile. Now let's see how they handled the real Earth defense fleet. The stealth ships dropped their camouflage completely. These were humanity's pride, warships that combined every advancement human engineers had made in secret over 15 years. Their hulls were coated in radar-absorbing materials. Their engines produced minimal heat signatures. And their weapons, the lead ship, UEDF Indomitable, Chen's personal flagship, opened fire with its main railgun. The tungsten slug crossed the distance to an alien dreadnought in less than a second and punched straight through its shields. The dreadnought's hull crumpled like paper. The other stealth ships followed suit. Unlike the aliens, who fired plasma weapons that took time to reach their targets and could be dodged, human kinetic weapons were nearly instantaneous at close range. Slugs moving at relativistic speeds gave no warning and allowed no evasion. Vraltek's primary force tried to return fire, but they were in disarray. They had expected to be bombarding stationary targets, not fighting mobile warships in close quarters. Their formation was designed for offense, not defense. All ships, break orbit, reform it. Another alarm blared. Klixitar's voice had gone from panicked to terrified. Commander, detecting weapons platforms throughout the asteroid belt. Multiple fixed installations coming online. They're everywhere. The asteroids that weren't ships were weapons platforms. Humanity had seeded the entire inner solar system with hidden defenses. Some were railgun batteries, others were missile silos. A few were even more exotic experimental weapons that Dr. Okonkow's teams had been developing. And all of them opened fire simultaneously. The alien armada, which had approached Earth expecting an easy victory, found itself in a killing field. Kinetic weapons struck from impossible angles. Missiles that had been drifting silently in space for weeks suddenly activated and slammed into ships. The humans' AI-coordinated attacks meant that every weapon, every drone, every ship was working together with perfect precision. The aliens, used to fighting in large formations with predetermined tactics, couldn't adapt. Their ships collided with each other trying to evade. Their communications were jammed by human electronic warfare systems. Their sensors were confused by chaff and decoys. In the first 20 minutes of combat, 180 alien ships were destroyed. Another 70 were damaged and drifting. The rest were scattered across Earth's orbital space, trying desperately to regroup. Supreme Commander Vraltek watched in horror as his fleet status board turned red. 300 ships lost or crippled. In 20 minutes. Against an enemy he had been told was primitive and unprepared. Fall back, he ordered. All ships withdraw to Mars orbit. We regroup and— Commander, we can't. Klixitar gestured at the tactical display with all four arms. The humans have mined the exit vectors. There are nuclear devices on delayed detonation timers drifting along every escape route. Vraltek stared. It was impossible. How could they have known exactly where his fleet would try to retreat? How could they have positioned mines along paths his fleet hadn't even entered yet? The answer was simple and terrifying. The humans had predicted everything. They had studied how the Galactic Council fought, had analyzed attack patterns from previous pacification campaigns, and had prepared for exactly those tactics. They had built their trap not around their own doctrine, but around the aliens' doctrine. A new transmission cut across all channels. Admiral Chen's voice, calm and cold. Supreme Commander Vraltek, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You came here to pacify us, to teach us a lesson, to show us our place in your galactic order. On the main view screen, Chen appeared. She was smaller than Vraltek, a full meter shorter, her frame appearing fragile compared to his armored bulk. But her eyes burned with intensity. You forgot to do your research, she continued. You watched us for 30 years, but you only saw what we wanted you to see. You thought we were primitive, divided, weak. You thought we would panic when your fleet arrived. Behind her, the tactical displays showed the ongoing battle. Human ships moving in perfect coordination. Alien ships dying by the dozen. We are hunters, Commander. We evolved on a planet where we were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most naturally armed. So we learned to think, to plan, to use tools and tactics. We learned to hunt prey that was bigger and more dangerous than us. And we always won. Vraltek felt something he had not felt in decades of combat: fear. You came to our home, Chen said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper but carrying absolute authority. You brought an armada to threaten our families, our children, our world. You expected us to surrender or die. She leaned forward, and Vraltek saw in her eyes something that made his blood run cold. It was the look of a predator that had cornered its prey. Instead, you're going to learn why you should never threaten Earth. You're going to learn that humans don't just fight back. We win, and then we make sure you never forget it. The transmission ended. Vraltek looked around his bridge. His crew was in shock. His tactical officer was trembling. His weapons officer was staring at displays showing impossible damage estimates. Commander, Clickstar said quietly, we have lost this battle. We must negotiate. Negotiate? Vraltek wanted to roar defiance, but his voice came out hollow. How can I negotiate? I command the greatest military force assembled in 3 centuries. I have never lost. I cannot. Commander, his communications officer interrupted. We're receiving surrender requests from our own ships. Multiple species are breaking formation, requesting permission to withdraw. The Thelnari contingent is broadcasting white peace signals. The Vexnar ships are powering down weapons. The coalition was breaking apart. The member species had joined this campaign expecting an easy victory. Faced with devastating losses, they were abandoning the fight. Vraltek looked at the tactical display one more time. His grand armada, the fleet that was supposed to civilize a primitive species, was shattered. 300 ships destroyed, another 100 damaged. And the humans? They had lost perhaps 20 vessels. 20 against his 500. It wasn't a battle. Admiral Chen had been right. It was an execution. Send a transmission, Vraltek said, his voice barely audible. Request terms. The mighty Krithian warrior who had conquered 12 worlds lowered his head in defeat. On Earth, Admiral Chen received the message and smiled coldly. Now, she said to her officers, now we make sure they understand exactly what happens when you threaten humanity. The battle for Earth had lasted 23 minutes from first shot to Vraltek's surrender request, but the war was far from over. Admiral Chen stood in the command center, studying the tactical displays. The alien fleet was broken, but not destroyed. Approximately 300 ships remained combat-capable, though many were damaged. They were scattered across Earth's orbital space, some attempting to regroup, others drifting without orders as their crews struggled to comprehend their defeat. Status of our forces? Chen asked. Her tactical officer pulled up the data. 23 ships lost, Admiral. 41 damaged but operational. The drone swarms have suffered 60% casualties, but the remaining units are still functional. Hidden platforms at 97% operational status were in good shape. Chen nodded. Good shape. They had just defeated an invasion force 5 times their visible size and lost only 23 ships. But 23 ships meant thousands of human lives, thousands of people who had believed in the plan, trusted in the strategy, and paid the ultimate price. She would mourn them later. Right now, she had a war to finish. Tactical, I want a threat assessment. Which alien ships are still capable of threatening Earth? The display shifted, highlighting vessels in red, yellow, and green. Red for immediate threats, yellow for potential threats, green for non-combatants. Approximately 60 ships still have full weapons capability, the tactical officer reported. Most of those are attempting to withdraw toward Mars. Another 80 have partial weapon systems but are protecting damaged vessels. The remainder have signaled surrender or are attempting to flee the system. Dr. Okonkwo appeared at Chen's side. We're receiving multiple transmissions from the alien fleet. Several species are broadcasting on open channels, requesting immediate cessation of hostilities. The Thelnari are offering formal surrender. The Vexenar are claiming they were coerced into joining the fleet. Coerced or not, they came here to destroy us, Chen said coldly. But we're not going to slaughter them. That's not who we are. However, we are going to make sure they understand the consequences of threatening Earth. She opened a command channel. All Earth forces, this is Admiral Chen. Battle plan shift to pursuit and containment. Do not fire on vessels that have surrendered. Do engage any ship that attempts to target Earth or remains in an aggressive posture. I want those ships driven out of our system, and I want them to carry our message home. Around Earth's orbit, human forces began their pursuit. The stealth ships, faster and more maneuverable than the alien vessels, herded the scattered fleet like wolves pursuing deer. Any ship that attempted to reform or present weapons received a warning shot across their bow. Those that ignored warnings received devastating kinetic strikes. The UEDF Indomitable moved to intercept what remained of Vraltek's command force. The inevitable conquest was damaged, one of its engine sections venting atmosphere, but it was still combat capable. Around it, 40 Krithian warships attempted to form a defensive screen. This is Admiral Chen of the UEDF Indomitable to Supreme. Commander Vraltek, Chen broadcast. You requested terms, here they are. You will immediately order all ships under your command to power down weapons and withdraw beyond Mars orbit. You will then leave this system and return to your council. Non-negotiable. There was a long pause before Vraltek's reply came. His voice, which had been so confident before, now carried the weight of defeat. And if we refuse? Will you destroy us all? I don't want to destroy you, Chen replied honestly. I want you to understand something. You came here thinking humans were weak because we hadn't developed faster-than-light travel yet. You thought our weapons were primitive. You thought we would be easy to conquer. She gestured, and her communications officer transmitted data directly to Vraltek's ship. Tactical analyses, weapon specifications, casualty reports, everything. That proved how thoroughly humanity had outmaneuvered them. We knew you were watching us for years, Chen continued. We let you think you understood us. Every military exercise you observed, every defense system you detected, every tactical decision we broadcast, it was all calculated to make you underestimate us. You didn't invade Earth, Commander. You walked into a trap that took us 15 years to prepare. On the inevitable conquest bridge, Vraltek stared at the data. The human weapon systems were ingenious, their tactics were brilliant, and their coordination was flawless. But what truly shook him was the timeline. 15 years. They had known about galactic civilization for 15 years, and spent that entire time preparing for war. What kind of species did that? You are predators, he said quietly. Yes, Chen acknowledged. We are. We evolved on a world where everything wanted to kill us. We survived by being smarter, more adaptable, and more ruthless than anything else on our planet. You thought that made us dangerous to the galaxy. You were right to be concerned. But you made a mistake. What mistake? You decided to attack, instead of trying to understand us, Chen said. If your council had approached us peacefully, offered trade and alliance, we would have been your friends. Humans are capable of great compassion, Commander. But when you threaten our home, our families, our survival, we become something else entirely. She paused, letting her words sink in. We become what you see now. We become hunters, and you became prey. Vraltek looked around his bridge. His crew was defeated, broken. Ships that had never known loss were destroyed. A military doctrine that had worked for thousands of years had been torn apart in minutes by a species that wasn't supposed to be a threat for another century. I will order my ships to withdraw, he said finally. Not all of them, Chen interrupted. The ships that have surrendered will be allowed to leave. But you, Commander, and Your flagship will remain here. Why? Vraltek felt a spike of fear. Were the humans going to execute him? Because you're going to be our messenger, Chen explained. You're going to return to your Galactic Council and tell them exactly what happened here. You're going to explain how you brought 500 ships against a primitive world and lost 300 of them. You're going to describe how humans fought, and you're going to deliver our terms for future relations. Terms? Earth remains independent, Chen stated flatly. No council oversight, no pacification, no integration. We will determine our own future. Any species that wants diplomatic relations with Earth can request them through proper channels, and we will consider those requests on an individual basis. But any species that threatens us will face what you faced today. She leaned forward, her image filling Vraltek's view screen. You came here to teach us a lesson, Commander. Instead, you're going to teach one to the galaxy. You're going to tell them that Earth is not to be trifled with, that humans fight differently, that we don't play by your rules, and that anyone who wants to find out firsthand will regret it. Before Vraltek could respond, new alarms blared across his bridge. Commander, Clickstar shouted. Multiple ships are breaking formation. They're not retreating. They're attacking Earth's cities. Chen saw it on her own displays. A squadron of 20 ships, mostly Crithian vessels, had broken away from the main fleet and were accelerating toward Earth. Their weapons were powering up. They were going to attempt orbital bombardment, targeting civilian populations in revenge for the defeat. Those fools, Vraltek breathed. I didn't order. I know you didn't. Chen cut him off. Which is why you're about to see why you should never, ever threaten human civilians. She opened a new channel. Dr. Okonkwo, those 20 ships heading for Earth, light them up. In the hidden facility in Antarctica, buried beneath miles of ice, Dr. Okonkwo had been waiting for this moment. The Reaper Protocol had been his life's work, a weapon so powerful and so unstable that it could only be used in the most desperate circumstances. 20 alien warships about to bombard Earth cities qualified as desperate. Activating Reaper Protocol, Okonkwo said calmly. Targeting solution locked, firing in 3, 2, 1. High above Antarctica, what appeared to be a research station suddenly reconfigured itself. Panels fell away, revealing a weapon platform. A massive dish, 50 meters in diameter, rotated to face the approaching alien squadron. Energy poured into the weapon. It was based on fusion reactor principles, but instead of containing the reaction, it focused it into a beam. The energy requirements were staggering. For the 3 seconds the weapon fired, it consumed more power than the entire continent of South America used in a day. A beam of pure concentrated energy, coherent and focused, lanced through space at the speed of light. It struck the lead Crithian dreadnought. The ship didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply ceased to exist. The beam, carrying temperatures and energies found in the heart of stars, atomized every molecule of the vessel instantly. One moment there was a massive warship. The next moment there was a cloud of dissociated atoms spreading through space. The beam didn't stop. It swept across the attacking squadron like a sword cutting through silk. 20 ships, 20 bursts of atomic dissolution. In less than 5 seconds, the entire attack force was simply gone. Then the weapon overloaded. The research station in Antarctica exploded in a cascade of secondary failures, the platform collapsing into the ice. The Reaper Protocol had worked exactly once and destroyed itself in the process, but it had made its point. On the inevitable conquest, every member of Vraltek's crew stood in shocked silence. They had just witnessed a weapon that made their own plasma cannons look like children's toys, a weapon that the humans had kept hidden until the very moment they needed it. How many of those do you have? Vraltek asked, his voice hollow. Just the one, Chen admitted. And it destroyed itself firing. But you don't know that's true. Do you? For all you know, we have dozens of them hidden all over the solar system. You'll never know what we're really capable of, Commander. That's the lesson here. You studied us for 30 years and didn't learn anything important. She let that sink in, then continued in a softer but no less intense voice. Those 20 ships tried to murder civilians. We gave them exactly what they deserved. This is the message I want you to carry back to your council. Earth will defend itself with overwhelming force. We don't want war, but we will not hesitate to utterly destroy anyone who threatens us. Throughout the solar system, the remaining alien ships were receiving the same message in the most brutal way possible. Human forces pursued them relentlessly, not to destroy them but to drive them out. Ships that attempted to regroup were broken apart. Vessels that tried to hide in asteroid fields were flushed out. The message was clear: leave now or die. Within 6 hours, the surviving alien fleet had been pushed beyond Mars' orbit. Within 12 hours, they had crossed the asteroid belt. Within 24 hours, they were fleeing toward the edge of the solar system, desperate to reach a distance where they could safely engage their faster-than-light drives. Admiral Chen watched them go from her command center. Around her, her officers were exhausted but victorious. They had done the impossible. They had defended Earth against overwhelming odds. But Chen knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy now knew humanity existed, knew they were dangerous, knew they were not to be underestimated. The question was, what would the galaxy do about it? Admiral, Okonkwo approached, carrying a datapad. Final casualty reports: 23 ships lost, 1,472 confirmed deaths, another 3,000 wounded, most of them stable. We also lost the Antarctic facility when Reaper overloaded. Chen closed her eyes briefly, honoring the dead. They saved Earth, all of them. Make sure their families know that. Yes, Admiral. What about the alien casualties? Best estimate, 411 ships destroyed or disabled beyond recovery. Approximately 190,000 alien deaths. Unknown number of wounded. Okonkwo paused. Admiral, we didn't just win a battle. We slaughtered them. They came to slaughter us, Chen replied quietly. And we made sure they failed. I'm not going to apologize for that. But I'm not going to celebrate it either. Every death, human or alien, is a waste. If they had just left us alone. She trailed off, then straightened. All right, new phase. I want repair crews working around the clock. I want our stealth assets to maintain long-range tracking of the alien fleet until they leave the system. I want our diplomats preparing for contact with species that might want peaceful relations. And I want our engineers designing new weapons, new ships, new defenses. You think they'll come back? Okonkwo asked. Chen looked at the stars visible through the command center's observation ports. Somewhere out there, hundreds of alien species existed. Some might be friendly, others might be like the Crithians, seeing humanity as a threat to be eliminated. They'll either come back to destroy us or to learn from us, she said. Either way, we need to be ready. Today we proved humans can defend their home. Tomorrow, we need to prove we can stand among the stars as equals. She turned to face her officers. This was the easy part. We knew what the enemy wanted and we prepared for it. Now comes the hard part, figuring out how to live in a galaxy that knows we're here, knows we're dangerous, and is scared of us. Maybe that's not such a bad thing, Okonkwo suggested. Fear is respect, in its own way. Maybe, Chen agreed. But fear also breeds hostility. We need allies, not just enemies too afraid to attack us. On the view screen, the last of the alien fleet winked out as they jumped to faster-than-light speeds, fleeing the Sol system in shame and terror. Earth had won its first interstellar war. But Admiral Sarah Chen knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The galaxy had learned that humanity was not to be underestimated. Now humanity had to learn how to live with the consequences of that lesson. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Earth, as historians were already calling it. 3 months of frantic rebuilding, diplomatic preparation, and military reinforcement. Admiral Sarah Chen had barely slept during that time, coordinating Earth's response to its sudden and violent introduction to galactic politics. Now, standing in the command center, she watched the final phase of her plan unfold. On the main view screen, Supreme Commander Vral Tech stood in the Galactic Council chambers, the same place where Earth's fate had been decided 3 months earlier. But this time, The proud Krithian warrior looked diminished, broken. His scales had lost their luster. His forearms hung limply at his sides. His eyes, once confident, now carried the 1,000-yard stare of someone who had seen their entire worldview shattered. The council chamber was packed. All 47 member species were present, along with dozens of observers. News of the fleet's destruction had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Everyone wanted to hear firsthand what had happened. The council speaker, that ancient being whose species was lost to history, raised one withered hand for silence. The murmuring crowd fell quiet immediately. Supreme Commander Vraltek, the Tiu speaker's voice was thin but carried authority. You led a pacification fleet of 500 ships against Earth. You were expected to return victorious in a matter of days. Instead, you returned 3 months later with 89 damaged vessels, and tales of catastrophic defeat explain. Vraltek stepped forward slowly. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Chen watched intently. This was the moment everything had been building toward. The battle had been won with weapons and tactics, but the war would be won with words and perception. Honored Council, Vraltek began, his voice barely above a whisper. I come before you not as a commander, but as a witness to our own arrogance and the consequences of underestimating an unknown species. He gestured, and holographic displays appeared above the council chamber, showing Earth from orbit. Beautiful, vibrant, seemingly peaceful. This is Earth, Vraltek continued. Home to approximately 10 billion humans. We observed this world for 32 years before determining it was a threat that required pacification. We watched their wars, their weapons development, their expansion into their own solar system. We concluded they were dangerous, but primitive. We believed they could be easily controlled. His voice grew stronger, tinged with bitter irony. We were wrong about everything. New images appeared. The alien fleet approaching Earth in perfect formation, confident and overwhelming. Then the ambush. Phobos splitting open, revealing massive weapons. Asteroids transforming into warships. The moon launching swarms of drones. The carnage that followed. The council chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Many of the delegates were seeing this footage for the first time, and the devastation was stunning. They knew we were coming, Vraltek said over the noise. Not just suspected. They knew, and they spent years preparing. Everything we observed, everything we analyzed, was part of an elaborate deception. They let us see a weak, scattered defense force while hiding their true capabilities. Ambassador Zekthor, who had argued for the pacification campaign, stood abruptly. This is impossible. Our surveillance was thorough. How could they have hidden all of this? Because they are more clever than we gave them credit for, Vraltek replied coldly. Because they understood how we think, how we fight, how we make decisions. And they used that understanding against us. The holographic display shifted, showing the tactical analysis of the battle. The way humanity had positioned its forces, predicted alien movements, and executed an ambush that turned a 5-to-1 numerical advantage into a massacre. They fought like nothing we have ever encountered, Vraltek continued. Our weapons rely on energy on plasma infusion. Theirs rely on physics. They accelerate solid projectiles to relativistic speeds. There is no shield against kinetic energy. Our ships were designed to fight in open space at medium range. They forced us into close quarters where our advantages meant nothing. He paused, his voice dropping. In 23 minutes of combat, we lost 300 ships, not damaged, not disabled, destroyed, atomized, gone. We lost another 100 ships throughout the day as we attempted to flee. In total, 411 vessels were destroyed, and approximately 190,000 personnel died. The silence in the council chamber was deafening. And the humans? The council speaker asked quietly. Their casualties? 23 ships, Vraltek said. Less than 1,500 dead. They achieved a kill ratio of nearly 20-to-1. This was not a battle. This was an execution, carefully planned and flawlessly executed. The holographic display changed again, and suddenly Admiral Chen's recorded message began playing. Every delegate in the chamber could see her, small by many species standards but radiating authority and cold determination. Honored Council, Chen's recorded voice began. I am Admiral Sarah Chen, Commander of the United Earth Defense Force. By now you know that your fleet failed in its mission to pacify my world. I want to make sure you understand why. The display shifted to show Earth's history. Wars, conflicts, struggles for survival. Images of humanity fighting with primitive weapons, then more advanced ones constantly adapting and innovating. We evolved on a world where survival was never guaranteed, Chen explained. We were not the strongest species on our planet, not the fastest, not the most naturally armed, but we were the smartest. We learned to use tools, to plan, to coordinate in groups, to turn our environment into a weapon. We became apex predators not through physical superiority, but through intelligence and adaptability. New images showed humanity reaching space, building stations, exploring their solar system. When we detected your surveillance 32 years ago, we had a choice, Chen continued. We could attempt peaceful contact or we could prepare for war. We chose to prepare, not because we are inherently violent, but because any species that watches another species in secret, that studies them without making contact, is clearly assessing them as a potential threat or target. The delegates shifted uncomfortably. Several species that had participated in the surveillance exchanged guilty looks. So we prepared. Chen's voice grew harder. We studied your technology as best we could. We analyzed your military doctrines from historical records we discovered. We developed weapons specifically designed to counter what we believed you would bring. And we staged an elaborate deception, making you think we were weaker than we were. Footage of the battle played again, but this time from human perspectives. The careful positioning of forces, the timing of the ambush, the coordination between different units. It was clear that every element had been planned to the smallest detail. You underestimated us, Chen said bluntly. You thought primitive weapons meant primitive tactics. You thought lack of faster-than-light travel meant lack of strategic thinking. You thought defensive positions around our cities meant we were emotionally driven and easy to manipulate. Every assumption you made was wrong. She leaned forward, and the intensity in her eyes made even the recorded image powerful. This is what I want your council to understand. Humans fight differently. We don't match force with force. We find weaknesses and exploit them. We use deception, ambush, and psychological warfare. We study our enemies and adapt faster than they can respond. This is how we survived on Earth. This is how we fought each other. And this is how we will fight anyone who threatens us. The image shifted to show the Reaper protocol firing, atomizing the 20 ships that had attempted to target Earth's cities. You saw what happened to the ships that tried to kill our civilians, Chen said coldly. That weapon destroyed itself in the firing and was the only one of its kind. But you don't know that for certain. You'll never know what other weapons we have, hidden. What other surprises we've prepared. That uncertainty will haunt you. She paused, then her expression softened slightly. But I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to propose terms for coexistence. Earth wishes to remain independent. No council oversight, no integration, no pacification. We will handle our own affairs. However, we are not opposed to diplomatic relations with species that approach us peacefully and respect our sovereignty. The council chamber's massive doors appeared in the hologram, and Chen gestured toward them. Any species that wants trade, cultural exchange, or alliance can send diplomatic delegations to Earth. We will consider each request individually. We are capable of being friends and allies, but we are also capable of defending ourselves with overwhelming force. The choice of which humanity you meet is entirely up to you. Her expression hardened again. But make no mistake, any species that threatens Earth, that attempts what your council attempted, will face the same fate as Supreme Commander Vraltek's fleet. We will not hesitate. We will not hold back. And we will make sure you regret it. The hologram shifted, one final time, showing Earth from orbit, now visibly bristling with defenses that humanity no longer bothered to hide. You wanted to eliminate us because you thought we might become dangerous in the future, Chen concluded. Congratulations. You made us dangerous right now. You taught us that the galaxy is hostile and that we cannot rely on anyone but ourselves for protection. You created the very threat you sought to prevent. Now you have to live with what you created. The message ended. The holographic display faded. The council chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then the Thelnari delegate, the floating, jellyfish-like being, pulsed with colors that translated as deep shame. We were warned, it said softly. Some of us argued against this action. We said that pacification was wrong, that peaceful contact should be attempted first. But we were outvoted. And now we pay the price, the Vexnar delegate clicked. 400 ships lost, 190,000 dead. And for what? The humans are still independent, still armed, and now they know we are hostile. Ambassador Zekthor, who had championed the pacification campaign, stood slowly. His scales had turned pale, a sign of distress in Crithian physiology. I believed we were preventing a threat. I studied the humans, analyzed their conflicts, their weapons development. Everything suggested they would be dangerous. They are dangerous, Vraltek said quietly. But we made them our enemies when they could have been our friends. That is, my true failure. Not losing the battle, but making war inevitable when peace was possible. The council speaker raised its hand again. Supreme Commander Vraltek, you have delivered the humans' message. What is your personal assessment? Can we trust them? Can we coexist with them? Vraltek considered carefully before responding. Honored speaker, I believe the humans meant every word. They will defend themselves without mercy against any threat. But they are not mindlessly aggressive. They offered surrender terms to our ships. They could have destroyed my flagship, but they let me live to deliver this message. They could have pursued our retreating forces beyond their system, but they let us go once we fled. He gestured at the now empty holographic space where Chen's message had played. They are warriors, yes. Perhaps the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy, but they also showed restraint when they could have chosen vengeance. I believe if we approach them peacefully, they will respond peacefully. But if we threaten them again... He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Everyone had seen what happened when humanity felt threatened. The council speaker nodded slowly. Then let it be recorded. Earth is hereby recognized as an independent world. No council species will attempt pacification, integration, or conquest. Diplomatic contact will be permitted for species wishing to establish peaceful relations, and this council will send an official delegation to formally apologize for the unauthorized attack. Unauthorized? Zekthor's voice rose. The council voted. The council was misled, the speaker interrupted firmly. By incomplete intelligence and biased analysis. This body authorized pacification of a primitive threat. Instead, we attacked a sophisticated species capable of defending itself. The responsibility for this disaster lies with those who provided the intelligence and advocated for war. Zekthor's scales turned even paler. He knew what was coming. Ambassador Zekthor of the Crithian Dominion, the speaker continued. You are hereby removed from your position and will face inquiry by your own government. Supreme Commander Vraltek, while you followed orders, your intelligence failures contributed to this catastrophe. You are relieved of command pending review. Both Crithians bowed their heads in acceptance. Their careers were over. Their reputations were destroyed. But they were alive, which was more than could be said for the 190,000 who had followed them into battle. The council speaker turned to address the full assembly. Let this be a lesson to all species present. We are not the only intelligent life in the galaxy, nor are we inherently superior. The humans have proven that technological advancement is not the only measure of a civilization's capability. They defeated us through strategy, adaptability, and sheer determination to survive. The ancient being's voice grew somber. We sought to pacify them, because we feared what they might become. Instead, we discovered what they already were: survivors, strategists, warriors, and now potential allies or eternal enemies depending entirely on how we proceed. On Earth in the command center, Admiral Chen watched the proceedings with satisfaction. The message had been delivered. The Council had accepted defeat. Earth was recognized as independent. Dr. Okonkwo stood beside her. We did it. We actually did it. Humanity is safe. For now, Chen replied. This was just the first test. There are thousands of species out there. Some will respect us, some will fear us, some will hate us. We need to be ready for all of them. Are we going to build more ships, more weapons? Okonkwo asked. Yes, Chen confirmed. But we're also going to build diplomatic corps, trade delegations, cultural exchange programs. We proved we can fight. Now we need to prove we can coexist. She turned away from the view screen showing the council chambers. The galaxy just learned that humanity is not to be trifled with. But if that's the only thing they know about us, we'll end up in an arms race that benefits no one. We need allies. We need trade partners. We need to show them that humans can be friends as well as warriors. You think they'll forget what we did to their fleet? Okonkwo asked skeptically. Chen smiled slightly. I don't want them to forget. I want them to remember forever that humans can be dangerous when threatened. But I also want them to see that we can be valuable allies, innovative traders, and interesting neighbors. Fear is a good foundation, but we can't build a civilization on fear alone. She looked around the command center at her officers, the men and women who had helped pull off the most successful ambush in military history. We've proven we can survive first contact with hostile aliens. Now comes the harder part, figuring out how to thrive in a galaxy that knows we exist. On the main view screen, the council had moved on to other business, but Chen noticed that every time a delegate spoke, they glanced at the space where Earth's message had played. The memory of humanity's victory would haunt the Galactic Council for generations, and that was exactly what Chen wanted. 3 months ago, Earth had been a secret, a primitive world that the Council thought it could simply erase. Now Earth was a name that carried weight, a species that commanded respect, a force that could not be ignored or underestimated. Admiral Sarah Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Then she got back to work. There were diplomatic protocols to establish, trade agreements to negotiate, and 1,000 other details involved in integrating a species into galactic civilization on their own terms. The Battle of Earth was over, but humanity's real journey into the stars was just beginning. In the command center's observation deck, looking at the stars, Chen made a silent promise to all the humans who had died defending their world. You saved us. You gave us a chance to stand among the stars as equals, not as conquered subjects. We will honor your sacrifice by building a future worthy of the price you paid. Outside, Earth spun silently in space, its new defense platforms glittering like a steel crown. The planet that had been marked for pacification now bristled with weapons and determination. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Earth was off limits. And humanity, the species that had evolved as hunters on a dangerous world, had proven that they could hunt among the stars as effectively as they had hunted on their home planet. The universe had wondered if they were alone. Now they wondered if they should have left humanity alone. It was too late for that. Earth was on the galactic stage now, and humanity would never be ignored again.